Hello, Paul. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good, Daniel. How are you, man?
You know what? I'm very good. I wanted to come into this interview and I wanted to congratulate you on it. I want to say how amazing your performance was, how authentic it was, how it made me cry. But I'm not going to do that because you must be getting so bored of hearing that now.
No, not especially the way you just said it. Coming from a young man like yourself, I'm really touched. Thank you, man. I appreciate it very much.
No, it was such a touching performance. I was like, I need to compliment you on anything but the performance because that's all I've ever heard for you. Now, I just want to go. You've got great hair. There you go. You've got great hair.
Hey, that's the best compliment I've had in weeks.
You definitely get the Oscar for best hair. 100%, man.
All right.
Now, I'm not an expert when it comes to the deaf community. I'm not an expert in much, to be fair, Paul. But with films and series, a lot of communities they've been misrepresented, and I assume, especially with Hollywood, that it's been exactly the same for the deaf community in the past. So,
Oh,
what does The Sound of Metal do right with portraying people without hearing that other films haven't quite grasped?
oh God, just about everything. I mean, Darius Martyr, the director, researched for about 14 years. He was going deep, deep, deep through the whole uh, country and meeting with different deaf actors and deaf advocates, just deaf people in general. And a learning curve was pretty steep for him, not knowing anything about deaf culture. But what did it get right? Well, it shows the deaf community is not a monolith, that there's so many parts to it. There are people with no hearing, absolutely none at all, some with some hearing. And then there are guys like Joe and Ruben who become deaf later on in life that have nothing, have no sign language abilities, no understanding of the deaf culture. And to go further on that, to show deaf people in a deaf sober house, to show deaf addicts, when for all these years they've never been portrayed as anything but ancillary characters, or somebody you see in the elevator, or comic relief, or one line here, one line there, and to portray deaf deaf characters in general being played by hearing actors. I mean, just a mortal sin. There are so many talented deaf actors in on the planet, in every country, and not just to mention our own country here. Throughout the country here, there are so, and I've worked with so many of them. So that's the biggest thing. And deaf people themselves have come up to me and said, "Oh my God, thank you for showing a deaf sober house, deaf addicts." And the reason, Daniel, is because it just shows you that they have the same journeys you and I have, the same foibles, the same weaknesses, the same everything, to be prone to addiction, which happens in the deaf community. And then on the other end, we have deaf lawyers, deaf accountants, people that go through their lives and raise families and are upstanding citizens, and people that get caught up in the justice system because they made a mistake or because they're just criminal. So, I mean, all the way around, it's just showing that deaf people, they always say, they love saying, we can do anything except for one thing: we can't hear. Once that bridge is crossed, then you see that the when hearing the hearing world intersects with deaf culture, it just shows you how close we really are indeed, how unified we really can be, and that goes for any culture.
It's amazing because my next question was pretty much what you said just there. You took the words right out of my mouth. Like, I've never seen a film that sort of shows deaf people tackling the exact same issues that people who can hear tackle. So it was amazing to see. And as you said about the actors there, I mean, Lauren Ridloff, she's a deaf actor who's now going on to star in Marvel's The Eternals. Like, amazing, huge things.
She's so gifted. What a great intuitive actor. Yes, yes.
Yeah, and the fact that all of the extras at the shelter, they were deaf as well. Yourself, obviously, your parents lost their hearing at a young age, sadly. How would you say you relied on your personal and in turn your parents' personal experiences? Because you and Joe shared so many similarities, like obviously with dealing with the loss of hearing one way or another. You both fought in Vietnam, and even you have even quite similar religious views, don't you? So how did you rely on that to portray Joe?
Well, it was everything. My father was deafened at about 6 months old from spinal meningitis. My mother at the age of 5. So my father never heard anything and doesn't remember hearing anything. My mother still remembered hearing music, and she already had acquired language and was speaking at the age of 5. So she spoke as well as she could, and she read lips. So how did I rely on it? Oh my God. Even, little tiny things. When you see Joe walking up the stairs and he grabs onto the railing, there's 2 scenes where that happens. My father walked upstairs that way because he had no sense of balance. When you lose your hearing, especially at night, when my father walked around at night, it would look like he was drunk, but there's no sense of balance there. My mother, a very, very astute lip reader, just growing up in the deaf community in Chicago, I do not consider myself a hearing person, although I am not deaf. I do have tinnitus from being on the ship I was in Vietnam, from the loud jet engines that I was exposed to on the flight deck. I was a hospital corpsman. And I've been in rock bands, so I've got that kind of thing. But I'm not deaf. I'm not hearing. Dude, I'm a coda. My first language is American Sign Language. I learned the English language as a second language growing up. At the time I grew up in the 50s, there was no sign language profession that deaf people could use to get through what they have to do. When there was a mortgage to be negotiated, a car to be bought, negotiating with the gas company to please don't turn off the gas, we're going to pay you next week. It went through me, from my mother to them, through me. Nowadays, children don't have to be put in that position. We have a profession. We have phones that have interpreters, or we have devices where you can, text. But that wasn't the case when I was a kid. So my father, now I'm telling you all this to tell you, my father felt very oppressed. He felt like he was living in America, but nobody spoke his language. So in essence, he was on an island, so to speak, and just was very insular in his group that he was in, the deaf people that we all lived with. That's how I felt. When a guy would tell me, don't interpret this for your dad, this is just between you and I, and my father's standing right there, I developed a distrust and a dislike for hearing people, just like my father did. I had to learn to get over that. So how much did I rely on it? God, it was everything to me. I just couldn't help but feel that way about hearing people and how they made my father feel. Although, you're responsible for your own feelings, it rubbed off on me, man. So I had to learn that, okay, hearing people aren't that bad. I'll have to listen. When there was a parent teacher conference, who do you think interpreted that for my teachers? And they're telling, well, Paul needs help in this. I'm telling my parents, no, Paul's doing a good job. I'm the guy responsible. Yeah. So it's all of that, man. It's all that. I am through and through a deaf advocate, and I always will be.
I mean, obviously, as someone who's had hearing his whole life, like, I know being deaf must be one of the worst things to experience. But watching Sound of Metal, like, my girlfriend and I, we sat back and was like, this must be so ridiculously hard. Like, even when Ruben managed to get the operation, and we were still just left devastated. Like, the hospitals are like, yep, job's done. And it was quite harrowing to watch at times. And I think that's credit to both you and the history making Riz Ahmed. Shout out to him for being the first Muslim nominated in Best Actor. I mean, how was it working with that absolute icon?
Yes, boy, agreement there. It was brilliant, just brilliant. What another intuitive, great actor. And part of the experience there was when I arrived on the set, I just had met the man, and the director, Darius, says, okay, let's get into this. No rehearsal. We're just going to sit down and do this scene because we knew our lines. I know. So, and he shot it chronologically. So you think about this, Daniel, I'm sitting down with this guy who I absolutely respect because I've seen all his work. And he was breaking my heart. I always say how grateful I am that he gave me everything I needed. He broke my heart in every scene I did with the man. To go back to what you were saying before this about the deafness and everything, when Helen Keller, who was deaf and blind, somebody asked her one time, which two, the blindness or the deafness, did she think was the worst affliction, or however you want to put that? She said deafness because it was the most isolating. The most isolating. Riz Ahmed, when I ask him how it's going, and he takes such a long moment there and he says, today's not a good day, I still get it right here from him. He was beautiful. And then you cut to the last scene, because now 3 weeks later, when we're doing our last scene, and it was a goodbye scene, I'm saying goodbye to Riz as an actor, as a man, as friends, and also Ruben and Joe are saying goodbye. Just heartbreaking, devastatingly so. So I can't say enough about the guy. And I just think he's so brilliant. What else can I say? He just gave me everything I needed. And I was there for him because I've been doing this for a long time on stages and small little theaters, not on film, man, on theaters, doing this intimate kind of work. So it was a perfect matchup for me, that's for sure.
I mean, you have some cheek to say he was heartbreaking. I saw you in that film, Paul. I watched about a week ago. I've only just got over this. I've only just stopped being red and puffy in the face because of you. And I suppose that's why you've been nominated for a little something called an Academy Award there, my friend. Paul Raci is in the Oscar Raci. How... I've been working on that headline for way too long, man. I couldn't wait to show you it.
I love that. I love that. My gardeners there. I hope this isn't bothering you. They're making noise in the backyard, but go ahead.
I was about to say the same thing. I've got builders outside.
Okay, great.
That's all right. We probably can't hear a word each other are saying, but we'll go with it. I was watching your Parks and Recreation episode the other day. Yeah. The possum one. I was wondering if that Paul Raci, who was stood opposite Amy Powler, Chris Pratt, Aziz Ansari, ever thought he would be the first person out of those four to get nominated for an Oscar. Did that ever go through your mind?
You are hilarious, man. You're very funny. Listen, but that is the story of my life. Being out here in Hollywood for about, I guess, 30 years now, and struggling and trying to get a role. Well, this thing came up, and they dangled. So, well, you know, there's a comic role, and this could be a series regular. So I was on this, like, this is great because I could fit in there. All those actors are so gifted, Amy and everybody in there. They're great improv actors. And I've got a lot of improvisational work under my belt too. I went to Second City, went to a program there, was working in improvisational groups in Chicago. But being on that set, those guys are quick and funny. And I had a great time. And I thought, this is a no-brainer. I fit right in. But as it goes, and as it goes my way and Hollywood way, they always went with a name. They always went with the other guy this way, never my way. But so I was on the set for one day and had a great time. And we were so facile with everybody. And Amy was hilarious. A lot of those lines are improv. I had a great time. But did I think this would ever happen? Of course not, man. I just had my head down. I'm taking the one step at a time. I'm doing what I got to do to pay my mortgage, you know, here in Burbank. But that is I love that scene, and I love the character I had. I loved my day on the set, but no, never dreamed it would happen. You know, you pray, you meditate, you think about it, but never happened.
Well, now you are that name now, Paul. You are that Oscar-nominated name, and I want to know what's next for you now that you have got that Academy Award nominee under your belt, because a little dicky bird tells me that there may be a Sound of Metal spin-off series, maybe?
Well, they have talked about it in the past. Because there's been talk about having a Joe's House type of thing that could spin off, which would be fascinating. I can't say as anybody's really seriously put anything on the table, but there has been talk of it. I would be open to that as some kind of a spin-off thing. However, what's next for Paul Raci? Uh, the things are, listen, I don't need to really win this award. The nominee, I forever am branded with that nomination thing. That is a blessing. And so I've been turning down roles now because what has happened since then is I've got a new team around me here. I've got a new management thing happening. They're taking care of me. I have some irons in the fire. There are about 5 things that we're talking about, big things, big roles that are coming up. So I'm going to go with the advice I'm getting. I may be working on something next month or for sure by June. So believe me, whatever I'm doing next is not going to be a Parks and Rec type of one-line.
You're not chasing after possums. Fine, I get it, Paul.
No, that's not going to happen. But as funny as that scene was, but I can guarantee you there's work coming up for me, and I'm living in the gratitude, my friend. I really am. And whatever happens next is going to be very satisfying for, I think, for myself and everybody else who's following what I'm doing.
There's one role that I've heard that it just, like Joe, just seems perfect for you. Because I know obviously you're part of the Black Sabbath tribute band, Hands of Doom, ASL Rock.
Right.
Now, could we ever see you taking on the role of Ozzy Osbourne in the biopic of his life? It just makes sense.
I would love that. Don't know if I could get his accent down, but although I could work with people on that, that would be great. But there's so many other. I wish I could tell you what one of the things that's coming up. I wish, but I'm supposed to keep my mind.
Do it. I won't tell anyone.
I can't do it. There are some things coming up. I don't want to ruin it for the people that have told me to shut my mouth. No, there's some things coming up that are going to blow your mind. That I really. I'll tell you what. If you look online and see some pictures, some photo shoots that I've done. There's one where I'm wearing this wide brim, the black hat. Have you seen that thing?
No.
If you look online, there's some. I did a great photo shoot with the great Josh Tellez here in Los Angeles. And if you look at that thing, it might give you an inkling as to what's coming up in the future. Very dark, very dark shadows, if you will. So something in that order. So you'll see something coming up. All kinds of things going on.
You big old tease, you tease. Thank you so much for chatting to me, man.
Hey, you have been a pleasure. You've been an absolute pleasure. I'm telling you.
No, honestly, it's been an absolute honor talking to you. Best of luck for the Oscars. And most importantly, I hope, unlike the announcement for the nominations, you're actually awake in time for the Oscar ceremony. So fingers crossed.
I am. Yes, all fingers crossed, man. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a brilliant one. See you later, bud.
My pleasure, man.